Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I got pressies from Ronja in Germany, I believe. Well, it probably says on the label. Yes. Hopefully sunny Germany, because it certainly isn't flipping sunny here, and we're in for some bad weather. Now, I mentioned I had a man coming to do the boiler. Yeah, well, he turned around and walked away, because he's a plumber, basically, and he installed the boiler, and then he explained to me that installing a boiler and repairing it are two entirely different things, and he suggested I get a representative of the manufacturer to come and deal with it. So, me being me, I've decided to deal with it myself, and I'm plodding away at it. It's one of those things where it's a lie on your back and fiddle with things you can't see properly. So I'm doing it a little bit at a time and then taking breaks and stuff. And one of the breaks is to unbox this. But we have had an accident. You probably can't see that very well, but the pliers slipped and decided to pinch my finger. Now eventually that will burst and I'll have a sore finger, but at the moment it's livable. So we're going to try and do the one-handed unboxing, which sometimes doesn't work, as we know, but we'll do what we can. Actually, no, we won't. We'll set the tripod up. I can't. Basically, just holding that knife hurts my finger, so we'll set the tripod up and use the other hand that works properly. Right, that's better. Now I can use two hands, or two hands minus one finger anyway. It'll make life a lot easier. I was told not to dig the cutting tool in too deep because there's something near the surface, so we'll cut upwards. Yeah, so I'm boilerless at the moment. It's no big deal. Luckily it's this time of year. I don't need the heating on. Oh, I see, there's a letter. Oh dear. Well, I'm not reading that lot out. It's an essay, not a letter. What have we got then? Hope my parcel finds you in good condition, since there are now supposed to be some cooler days coming. We've had no days cool enough to damage what's in here, so I won't worry about that. And then I've got a history of the plant. So I've got what is for me a replacement plant. It's an actual Cattleya type that I lost several years ago with the dreaded F, one of the many that went down at that time. And I've quite honestly been looking for this for a while now. It's one that I really like. I must have mentioned that somewhere. And there's also a bulbophyllum in here, which although I'm not the biggest bulbophyllum fan, this is one that I actually thought about many times about trying to get hold of, because I do like the bloom. Oh, and there's something else been added in. Oh dear, we'll have fun with that. It's a little piece of something. It's actually a Masdevallia, but it's classed as intermediate. So for once I might have a Masdevallia that will grow. This is actually a swap rather than a gift, so I have a reciprocal box of goodies to send back once I find out what's wanted specifically, and I can get round to it. That's another thing to go on the round to it list. This round to it list is getting really big, but priority on the round to it list today is to try and get this boiler sorted. I'm confident, I know this is not relevant to orchids, but it's still life and stuff, isn't it? This is a pressurised boiler system, so you feed mains water into it to pump up the pressure to a certain value, and then it just works, and it's a sealed system. Over time, the water inside the system loses some of its content of air. That's why you have to bleed your radiators now and again to let that air out. But over a very long period of time, the pressure can drop as a consequence. And on this particular boiler, when it gets to a certain low pressure, it shuts itself off and won't work because there's not enough water pressure in the system. So you go upstairs and you turn the valve on, let some more mains water in and sort of pump it up again. And then you come down and look at the reading and it hasn't changed. Yeah? So unless water's pouring out somewhere, which it can't be, because I'd be swimming in it, the amount of water I've put in over the last couple of weeks, trying to keep the pressure up. So basically my diagnosis is the pressure gauge is faulty. Because by altering the pressure, either by releasing the pressure and letting some water out, lowering the pressure, or pumping the pressure right up, the reading isn't changing. So it's got to be the pressure gauge. It can't really be anything else. So that's my diagnostic, self-diagnostic. Trying to get at the flipping thing. Well, as I said, it's lying on your back, trying to get screws undone that you can't even see. And I've got to the point now where I can access the pressure gauge, and it's held in with a clip, which seems odd. So I've got no screws or spanners or anything. I've just got to hook the clip out, lift the unit out, disconnect the two electrical connectors. Well, I've found the fuse, so I've disconnected the electrics so I don't zap myself. That was first priority. There's going to be water, you know, water and electric don't go. So I found the bit that needs replacing. It's easy to buy online. I could get it at the local plumb-based store if they've got it in stock. If not, they can order it, but from them it's twice the cost. So the fact that I don't really need my boiler this time of year, for hot water there's an electric immersion in the tank, so I can just flick the switch on that and get hot water. And as far as heating is concerned, I'll put a jumper on if it gets cold. It's not the end of the world, it's not like it's midwinter. I mean, the temperature in the room at the moment is 17.5 degrees. Now some would say that's quite cool. Well, if I was just sitting around doing nothing, yes it would be, but I'm busy. So I'm quite happy with that temperature. If it gets too cold, I'll bring the greenhouse heater in the house. But it's much easier to just put a jumper on. So I'm in the middle of doing the boiler in bits and pieces. The next thing to do is try and drain the water out. And the little tap thing that you have to turn to let the water out is behind a huge big pipe. And it's almost impossible to get my hand in there. And at the moment it would be much easier to do it with my left hand. Unfortunately I can't get hold of anything, because if I press on that it hurts like hell. So that's where I am. So we'll do the boxing or unboxing, and then we'll have a coffee, and then we'll have a think, and then we'll get down on our hands and knees yet again and see if I can drain the water. Once I've drained the water, all I've got to do is take that unit out. It might just need cleaning. It might not even need replacing. Well, we've got green leaves. I'm going to leave that one till last, because this is the one the idea of the box full was actually geared up to. And the other things that are in here, I'm not quite aware of what I'm getting. Now this has been wrapped up in tissue and put inside a toilet roll. The impression I get is that it might be a bit delicate. So we'll see what we've got in here carefully. This is the bulbophyllum piece. It's got some almost dry moss around it. It does look a little desiccated, but it does have a new growth. So obviously that's important, to look after the new growth and the couple of new roots that are coming out from underneath it. I'm going to leave that moss on there for now, because as I say, I'm busy with stuff not orchid related. I really should be watering my orchids today. But that's a bulbophyllum, I've forgotten, Tig something. Where's my list of bits? Tig. Tingabarium, or Tingabarium, probably a soft G, Tingabarium. I'll do a pop-up. I'm probably pronouncing that totally wrong. And then we have another piece of something. Actually, I think that's packing. Yeah, that's packing. I'm being very careful because I know there's something tiny in here somewhere. Looks like it might be in here. No, I think I haven't missed it. No, nothing in there. Definitely nothing in there. Definitely nothing in there. Nope. Well, I haven't missed it, unless it's actually tucked in with the bulbophyllum. No? Or maybe it got forgotten. Anyway, let's have a go at the big bit. I'm going to make a mess now. No, I'm not. I'm going to hold it over the box. I can make a mess in there. Whoops. My favourite stuff, sellotape. Well, that's one leaf that didn't make it. This is a large piece, a very large piece. I don't know whether it's the whole plant or a division, but when growing well, this is an incredibly vigorous plant. Ah, there's my little piece. I'll come back to that as I've started on the big bit. Oh my god. I'm glad I held that over the box. The root system is full of ceramis. Not my favourite item, and is very, very dry. Yeah, there's some leca and some ceramis. Well, this will be going in a holy clay pot. So a little bit of something like that on the roots is not actually going to do any harm at all. But boy, is that dehydrated. That needs. I'm going to actually stand that in a jug of water for a while, let that fully rehydrate. But it's a good piece of plant. Oh, I forgot to say what it was. The whole point of the box. It's Mackay. Let me just see if it actually says in here somewhere or other. Yeah, Mackay. Sorry. Maikai, and I had quite a nice little plant of this that seemed to be growing okay, and then it just went down, and I've been after a reasonable plant ever since. This, if you get it going, goes mad. It will push out new leads from all over the place. Back of the plant, middle of the plant, front of the plant, double leads in places. It's a very vigorous plant once it gets a hold, if you know what I mean. So I'm hoping this is going to take off. The leaves don't look too desiccated, despite the roots being very dry, so I think that'll rehydrate itself quite nicely. I don't see any active growing green root tips at the moment, but these are viable roots, albeit dry. Yeah, they will plump up, and there are signs of new roots coming out at the base of some of the bulbs. So that's not going to be easy to get in a holy clay pot, because it's actually got a lot of roots. Most of the ones I've potted up in the holy clay pots haven't had that many roots to deal with. But I'll get it in there. Might have to go in a larger one than normal to allow these roots to spread. Yeah, but that's a nice plant. Pleased with that. Now let's open the little one. Now this is actually a Masdevallia. Has it got a name? Masdevallia strobelii, and apparently it's warmth tolerant. You have to go careful with the labelling and stuff with Masdevallias, because there's a difference between one that grows intermediate and one that grows cool but is warmth tolerant, because it'll always be pushing its luck. Yeah. Whereas if it's a genuine intermediate grower, it comes from lower down the hillsides where it's that bit warmer, then it will be happy in intermediate. That's a tiny little piece. That's going to go in a tiny little pot. I doubt if there's much of a root system on it. Not a lot, but some. And again, I'm just going to stand that in some water for now, just to make sure those roots don't stay in dry air, which it is at the moment. So there we go, 3 new plants to deal with. Bulbophyllum with a new growth, and the previous new growth's got 1 active root, and quite honestly the rest of the roots on here are fine. I've potted up worse bulbophyllums than that. You watching, Archie? So yeah, we'll get that in something reasonable for a bulbophyllum to grow in. And this looks like this has been grown from a seedling. If you look at these tiny little bulbs and look at the progression round the rhizome to this one, and the latest one that's shooting off here, plus that new growth is part way back down the rhizome a bit. That's good, because that effectively is now a new lead. And yeah, we'll get that in a pot. See, it's a creeping rhizome. You can see it just extends linear, but it's gone off in 2 directions. It's growing in this direction That's its latest growth. It's now pushed out a new growth halfway along, and this is the latest growth in the other direction. But literally by turning it, I should end up with 3 separate directions. This one heading that way, that one heading that way, and this one coming out and starting up a new lead. So we'll get that in some media pretty sharpish. It might not be absolutely immediately, simply because, like I said, I've got stuff to do today. Like, I've got a boiler in pieces at the moment, and even though I can't work on that flat out, because I can't lie on my back and kneel on a hard floor, well, I have got my cushion down there for any length of time, I'll do my knees in again. I don't want that. Anyway, thank you very much, Ronja, and we're in touch, so effectively I'll find out the reciprocal plants. I'm pretty sure it was, the idea was to send some Restrepia kikis. Well, I can do better than that, because my 2 largest Restrepias are due a repot, and at that point it'll be much easier to split off a reasonable part of the plant to give somebody a good start, rather than try and get kikis going. They're not the easiest on the Restrepias. Sometimes they take off, and other times they just sit there and sulk for a year. So I'll see what I can do once I find out definitely what's wanted. And I've also got quite a few plants on my to-go list that maybe there's something in amongst those that would be useful. Anyway, thanks for this. Arrived safely, incredibly fast. I mean, it was a tracked item, so I've been keeping my eye on it each morning, you know, and it sort of was taken into the post office in Germany. The next thing it was on a flight, the next thing it was in Heathrow, the next thing it was in a van to the Dorset Central Office, the next thing it was in a van to Christchurch where I live, and the next thing it was here. And all of that happened in not that many days. It actually happened over a 2 or 3 day period, so well impressed with that. You know my comments on the post in Germany in the past, not always the best, but in this case, spot on, good stuff. Right, thanks for that then, and I'll see you next time.